Salama family, salama. How you doing today? Hope you're blessed and highly favored. Minister Tay, you say hello to the family.
Salama family, how y'all doing today?
So family, I was looking at our history and I just get more interested in it. Um, how, you know, everything you have learned from the Europeans, you need to relearn, right? They don't want you to know who you are. They don't want you to know who you were, right? Because you might want to try to attain what you had in the past because you all were royalty. I told you that I did a video about that, about being royalty, but even more so, you are royalty. And we can go into that deeper in the future, right? We're going to hit little pieces as we go along the day. But understand, like, even for our, what's that? What's the name of that site? True Heritage, right, Minister Taylor?
Yeah, my true ancestry.
Yeah, my true ancestry. I think it is. Um, even show that we had some royal blood, right, in Europe. And so, when you deal with certain people, like some of the millennials today, they don't know what they're talking about, right? Because they don't understand how to, reason when it comes to scientific information, if you know what I'm talking about. They don't know how to apply anthropology along with other forms of science, even though they act like they know what they're talking about. So I'm going to go back to a video that I did. I'm going to start off there. It's called The Hidden History of Moors and Jews, if you haven't watched it. Now, all of this stuff is progressive, and you should be taking all of this in, all of the old stuff we did, as well as stuff by Brother Benya Israel. Understand, things like Yaya Negro and all those type of things, because they all come full circle. And that's why you can't talk to other people and other channels about these things, because they're not interested. They're not digging like we're digging, and definitely they don't reason well. Okay. So, like, even, in my opinion, some of our Israelite brethren and sisters, right? Some of them are, I said it yesterday, traitors. That's how I see it. And I don't want to have nothing to do with them. And they can say whatever they want, right? Because understand that a lot of them want to give away your heritage. A lot of them want to share your heritage with other people, all under the fake disguise of DNA and foolishness that they think they understand that they don't. Any comment, Minister Taylor?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I would say the biggest thing that gets me is this where they say, "Oh well, not all of Israel were black, right?" But if you go and look at my family, Tayu, Yacoba, my grandmother, my cousins, cousins, right? We black. So if you break that down, that Israel came from one man, Jacob, I mean that's a reasonable argument. Now, can there be, some Israelites that are of another color? Yeah, that can happen because mixing does happen, but the majority of the race will still be the same as their forefather, especially when you look at the history of Israel. the history of Israel, they did not intermarry much. They did not intermingle, right? So, like, I was reading this book on the Igbo, and as y'all know, Pastor Kelly and Pastor Brown brought it out that the Igbo are acknowledged as being true biblical Jews or Israelites, right? This book was breaking down the traditions of the Igbo, and I mean it matches exactly with the biblical traditions. But one thing was important too: they did not intermarry with other groups, just like the Limba. The Limba did not intermarry with other groups, and we see that same thing when if you go back to some of our studies on the Moors, right, and the Jews that lived in Portugal and Spain during that time, right, that the Portuguese Jews did not intermarry, right? That was clearly stated in one of the books, right? So we have this evidence based on the traditions of the Igbo, but also commentary about the Portuguese Jews who were always black, right? Spanish Jews who were swarthy and dark complexion, right? We got many books that show that, right? They did not intermarry often, right? So the majority they're going to remain the same race or phenotypes and all of this as their forefathers. I mean, 400 years in America, and the majority of us still have woolly hair, dark brown skin, you know, shades between copper and dark brown skin to this very day after 400 years. But yet, some of these people try to apply this climate argument as though climate is a valid argument for why people's pigmentation changes. That's not a valid argument, right? We've been in this country for 400 years and our pigment has not changed at all unless we mixed.
So let me ask you a question, Mr. Tell. So are you saying that there's no Israelites that look white?
I already said some of them look other colors. Some of them may be white. Look, I have friends who all of their relatives are black, but they look white, and I don't know if it's because of mixing or what. I mean, they could be albino. I don't know, but they've always grown up with blacks, look black. I mean, their relatives are black like the rest of our family, but they look sort of white, right? So they can pass. Now, in America, that could definitely be because of, rape or whatever, or just straight up mixing. But even in that scenario, I'm saying his surrounding family, right? I know a girl who looks white, who could pass for white, and a guy who could pass for white, but the rest of their family look black. But, their surrounding family is Negro all through. You go to the family reunion and they black. So I'm just saying, yeah, you can have people that can pass for white that might be Israel. And I don't know what, I guess how that genetic change took place. But I'm saying that whole climate change, or not climate change, but that whole, changing your climate to a colder climate and over hundreds of years or 1,000 years, you're going to get lighter. No, that doesn't work that way, right? You inherit that pigmentation and it's passed down. Now, if you start mixing with lighter people, yeah, your children might get some of that DNA that makes your pigment lighter, right? That's how it works. Not this whole, the white man moved to the South, he's supposed to get darker. That doesn't happen, never happened, can't be proven, right? They're living in Israel today, and they're getting cancer. The people who live in Egypt, the Ottoman Turks, they're getting cancer because, they can't take that heat. They have a low vitamin D count because they always have to have these heavy clothes on to protect them from the sun, right? The land is not accepting them, even though they're occupying it.
So, Minister Tell, would you say this is a correct statement? And I'm putting it in my words. 95% of Negroes of some color, some type of color, from light brown to blue black, right? These range of colors, even maybe what we call white, but that 5%, that 5% that might be white. I mean, that and that's probably worldwide, not just America, right? It's worldwide. A small percentage that is different from the family, right?
That's how it is. I mean, that's common sense. We get gaslighted into trying to back down and say, well, I can't say all of Israel is black, but they are black people. You know, some of Israel might be look white, but they are a black nation. If Jacob is black, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all of their descendants are black. This is common sense, right? And so we get gaslighted into saying, well, oh, you're stealing people's identity and things like that. But those same people admit that some Israelites could be black. But historically, the Israelites were in Egypt, right? Working as slaves in the hot sun. We look, even those people who have our identity today have to go back and say, well, the ancient Israelites were boxwood or something other than white, because they know that they can't make the argument that their skin can take the heat of Egypt. You see, and so this is not even a race thing. This is common sense. We get gaslighted into trying to back down and say, we can't say that they are black people, but I could say the descendants of Genghis Khan are Chinese. What's wrong with that? Right? But when I say the descendants of Israel are a black race, we can't say that. But I'll tell you why. Because we are the most infamous, well-known nation of people in the history of the planet. That's why. And people want our identity, but they don't want the curses when they go against the Most High. So when we get punished, they take our identity and get all the blessings from the nations that want to honor the people of Yah. So that's all I want to say.
So let's look at, we're going to do a little small recap on the hidden history of the Moors and Jews. This is a video I did, about a year ago? A year and a half ago, I think it was. So Moorish slaves or Israelite slaves. Arabic custom and language. In 711 AD, the Moors crossed the Straits of Gibraltar. We saw that. And began their conquest on the Spanish Peninsula. It was during these conquests that many were captured and their descendants sold to the slave traders who brought them in shackles to America. Wait. Y'all just told me, or somebody on there said they were different colors. Some of them, I'm assuming you were saying, well, white. Well, when were the white folks sent to America in shackles as slaves? This is from Delaware's Forgotten Folk, the story of the Moors and Nanacox. The Moors crossed the Straits of Gibraltar and began their conquest on the Spanish Peninsula. It was during these conquests that many were captured and their descendants, those who were captured and their descendants, sold to the slave traders. Where were white folks sold to the slave traders? They were black Moors. And they were sent where? To the Americas. Now, something we're going to see in his history is how there were Jews, black Jews in the Americas. I'm not talking about this Indian stuff. I'm not talking this foolishness about crossing the Strait of Gibraltar, and Aseret and all that stuff. Y'all know my position on that. I'm talking about how some of our people, black Israelites, ended up in the Americas before the transatlantic slave trade really took off. Moorish and African slaves. There are isolated reports of such presence and contributions of Ottoman slaves. In addition to those cited above, for example, historian Jeremy Black wrote that early on, prior to the massive transatlantic slave trade, before the transatlantic slave trade, Moorish captives from the Mediterranean conflicts were sent to work in Spanish Portuguese colonies in the Americas. So some came here earlier to work as slaves for the Spanish. But you're going to find also that some came here running away from the Inquisition. So now I'm going to get ahead of myself. So historian Herbert Klein mentioned that the Moorish captives preceded and coexisted with African slaves in the Caribbean, and English professor Nabil Matar noted that Britons encountered Moorish and Turkish captives of the Spanish in the Caribbean during the Age of Discovery. So this is South Carolina's Turkish People, a History Etymology by Terry Ann Agmany. Okay, so this is something is very important here. This is a story in Charleston. Now, what you're going to see is, and if all of you, I know many of you all follow Benyah Israel's teachings and how he talked about some of the black Jews that came all the way to Georgia, right? And they came along with a certain group of other people, right? All of this stuff ties together. So in 1786, two men appeared in Charleston dressed in Moorish habit, in which aroused a great deal of suspicion by their strange ways. An officer of the law tried to question them, found out they were Moors and did not speak English. According to Charles Reznikoff's book, The Jews of Charleston, concluded after some time passed, they determined that the two of them were of the Jewish nation. Wait, they were Moors and of the Jewish nation. They took the two men to the home of a woman on East Bay Street who understood their language. She found out that they sailed from Algeria to Virginia, where they had been arrested on suspicion of being Algerians. They then traveled overland to South Carolina. The woman's name was Miss Starr Barrett, a Jewish woman who was born where? In the Barbary States. All right, so the reason why I re-showed that one is to emphasize that these guys were Moors, okay? They were black Moors, they were black Moors, right? And if you go on and read the rest or watch the rest of the video, you will see that they went into slavery, right? They sold these two guys into slavery, and they had reached out to their king over in Morocco, who was also black, right? So that he reached out to them, and they went to court, and they were freed. All right. So they went into slavery because they were black. All right. But they were Moors who came here voluntarily and were not taken in the transatlantic slave trade. Now, remember also, we got Matthias de Souza, who also came over here as an indentured servant, who was black, who was a Portuguese Jew. Now, I had to set that so that we understand that the Moors were black. Now, here's what we got to do. Some of the Moors were Muslim. Some of the Moors were Ishmaelites. But as I just showed you, they said that there were Moors who were what? Of the Jewish nation. So I'm showing you that some of the Moors were Jews. So what you need to understand here is that the history has always been shrouded. Why? Because there was something going on that they didn't want you to know about. And what was that? That you all were ruling. You all were the HNIC. You all had the money and the castles and the businesses and the trading and all that. It was you all, your ancestors. And that's why they're so ticked off and never want you to ever get a leg up, which is why they put all these policies in place, because they know if they let you go, you're going to be back in the same position you were before, ruling and reigning. All right. So now this is I'm sharing another video. It's from a website called KMZ History. And someone shared that with me today. All right. So let's look at this video, right? That we're going to have a little discussion about this. I can go on and on. I think y'all got the message. So we ruled Europe. We ruled Europe. Minister Taylor, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think a lot of our people seen a lot of the other images that have come out of Portugal and Spain with noble images of noble black people, right, who had high positions in society. So, I mean, our narrative is constantly reaffirmed based on the research that we're starting to discover.
So understand this. You have a bunch of people that come around with their own little shoddy research, with their little clips and misrepresentation of history. But as we go forward, what happens? History lines up, anthropology lines up, DNA lines up, everything starts to line up, right? When you pursue truth, right, it starts to line up. When you're lying and deceiving, you get busted like certain people have, right? Certain people coming out there with basically trying to hide and manipulate the information. See, what we need to understand is that some people don't want truth. That's how it is. And guess what? They're gonna reap the reward of that. They're gonna reap the reward of pursuing a lie. So understand that our people ruled Europe, and for 800 years. Now, what they want to do, thank you for the gift, Brother Bruce. What they want to do is tell you that they were all Muslims, they were all Moors. Well, I already showed you. I already showed you that some of the Moors were Jews. And if you follow this ministry for any length of time, you will know we showed other documentation that many of the Moors were Jews. There's nothing they can say. We already proved that some of the Moors were Jews. Now, understand the scripture talks about what happened, like for instance, we always talk about Deuteronomy 28. We talk about the curses, but there were blessings. Now, Israel had the blessings. And then Israel rejected their Messiah, got kicked out the land. The blessings didn't disappear overnight. So they went over there with some Muslims, some of the descendants of Ishmael, and conquered Spain, conquered Portugal, conquered Granada. All right. So the scripture says, though, that after the blessings comes the curses. After the blessing, and we've covered that 100 times. But we have this scripture, Ecclesiastes 10:7 says, I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. And that's what we see. You all are the servants now. When you were the princes, thank you for the gift. You all are the servants now when you were the princes, but the 400 years is over. Now the roles are going to change. The script is going to be flipped. It's already happening. You can see it. So the Most High says, I've seen service on horses and princes walking that service upon earth. All of that power, all of that influence, all of that rulership was taken away. Because the Most High say, look, if you start worshiping other gods, you start doing these things, you start marrying people, all this, you start breaking my laws, you're going into slavery. These curses are coming on you. But those curses are over. But we have to understand that there was a blessing before the curses. Just as it took a while for the curses to come, right? We had the blessings for a while. We were the leaders. We were the rulers. Now, I want you to take note of something. When I showed the video dealing with the images of the Moors and their crests and all those things, understand that they look a certain way, right? Obviously black, with the typical red lips, curly hair, as we see in the description of the Portuguese Jews. What else did you notice? They had an earring in their hair, in their head. They had an earring, and they had a headband. They had an earring and they had a headband. Why does that matter? Now, Am I saying every single one of them that had earrings in them are Israel? No, because some of them might be Ishmaelites, but some were Israel. I already showed you some of the Moors were Jews. Genesis 35:4 says, and they gave unto Jacob all the strange gods which were in their hand, and all their earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. Who had these earrings? Jacob. What? In his ears. You saw those images. Black folks, curly hair, earring in their ear, a band on their head. Exodus 32, 2-3. Aaron answered them, take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing. Who had earrings? Wives, sons, and daughters were wearing what? Earrings, and bring them to me. So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. Israel wore earrings. You know what else Israel wore? Gold chains. But I digress. Let's continue. All right. So this is from a website. Talked about some of the attires of the ancient cultures. Let me make this bigger. Let's see here. Okay. Jews. In the ancient times, Jews originally wore headbands besides turbans and kippahs as their traditional clothing. In modern times, these Jewish fashions are only worn by the Mizrahi Jews. In ancient times, they had what? Headbands. What did you see in those pictures? Earrings, headbands. We saw that there was Moorish Jews that came to America, ended up being enslaved and had to go to court and got released. All right. So a lot of those people, a lot of those images were of Jews. Now, which ones are specifically Jews, we can't say. Some might have been Ishmaelites, but they were family. Why you think they hooked up together? Why you think they decided to go into Spain and Portugal and invade? Hey, cousin Ishmael, what you doing? Oh, I'm doing this. Y'all need to come help me go conquer these people over here. That's what happened. Any comments before I continue, Mr. Taylor?
No, you can continue.
All right. So understand, our people got overthrown, got kicked out. Now, why don't they teach you these things? Why? Because you might want to come back and get your power and get your land back and all them castles that you used to own. They ain't gonna allow that though, not without a fight. Just like they took all of the artifacts from Africa and they now in Britain. It's the same thing. They steal everything. And not only do they steal what you made, they steal your heritage, your identity, your culture, everything. All right. So the Granada War. This is where we lost power. The Granada War was a series of military campaigns between 1482 and 1491 during the reign of the Catholic monarchs Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon against the Nasrid dynasty emirate of Granada. It ended with the defeat of Granada and its annexation by Castile, ending all Islamic rule on the Iberian Peninsula. Let's look at the Nasrid dynasty right quick. The Nasrid dynasty was an Arab dynasty and the last Muslim dynasty in the Iberian Peninsula, ruling the Emirate of Granada from 1230 until 1492. Now, understand this. When we look at all of the old history, all of the things we've been through, all the things you've seen by Benya and others, understand that there was a rulership by black folks, and those, because we saw that the Jews lost their property, their gold, their wealth, and everything, right? In order to stay in the land and not get kicked out. And then they fled Spain, went to Portugal. Then they got kicked out of Portugal, sent to Angola, Sao Tome, all those things. So now we have the Nasrid dynasty, which was a Islamic Muslim dynasty, which were Ishmaelites, but they were associated with the Jews because we see that in other books that the Jews were with the Moors. They all got kicked out, and they all were a part of this battle called the Granada War. The 10-year war was not a continuous effort, but a series of seasonal campaigns launched in spring and broken off in the winter. The Grenadians were crippled by internal conflict and civil war. Is that not what always happened? Even in Jerusalem in 70 AD, Israel was fighting Israel. Let me read this. Jacobi, you are correct. Tariq ibn Zayed was a Moor, and he, along with the Jews, conquered Spain. And many Jews became Moors and ruled alongside the Moorish Muslims. Exactly. So the Grenadians were crippled by internal conflict and civil war. This is how we got overthrown. I was like, how did they overthrow us? We smarter, we're stronger, we're faster. Now understand too that the Europeans had artillery. I think at that time they had an advantage in weaponry. All right, the Grenadians were crippled by internal conflict and civil war, while the Christians were generally unified. The Grenadans were also bled economically by the tribute they had to pay Castile to avoid being attacked and conquered. The war saw the effective use of artillery by the Christians to rapidly conquer towns that would otherwise have required long sieges. On January 2nd, 1492, Muhammad the 11th of Granada, or King Boabdil, surrendered the emirate of Granada, the city of Granada, and the Alhambra Palace in the Castilian forces. This is where it all started falling apart. The war was a joint project between Isabella's crown of Castile and Ferdinand's crown of Aragon. The bulk of the troops and funds for the war came from Castile, and Granada was annexed into Castile's territory. The crown of Aragon was less important. Apart from the presence of King Ferdinand himself, Aragon provided naval collaboration, guns, and some financial loans. Aristocrats were offered the allure of new lands, while Ferdinand and Isabella centralized and consolidated their power. The aftermath of war brought to an end coexistence between religions in the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, coexistence of religions in the Iberian Peninsula. Jews were forced to convert to Christianity. We saw that. Or to be exiled in 1492. And by 1501, all of Grenada's Muslims were obliged to convert to Christianity. So what do you have? Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. So become slaves or be exiled. By 1526, this prohibition spread to the rest of Spain. New Christians or conversos came to be accused of crypto-Islam and crypto-Judaism. We read all of that. Spain would go on to model its national aspirations as the guardian of Christianity and Catholicism. The fall of the Alhambra is still celebrated every year by the City Council of Granada, and the Granada War is considered to traditional Spanish historiography as the final war of the Reconquista. So understand, they all fought against us, right? Now, we were fighting each other, which is why we couldn't really fight these people, and they had new weaponry, all right? So they had new weaponry, and we ended up fighting each other. Now understand this, and we're going to get into this a little more. Black people were living in Europe. Black people were living in Germany. Black people were living in Australia. Black people were living in Austria. Black people were living in Russia. Black people were living everywhere. Now, were all those black people Israel? No, but some were. Many were, as a matter of fact. Any comments, Minister Taylor, before I continue?
Well, yeah. Well, the fact of what Minister Jacoba just said makes you think twice about how you look at DNA, right? I mean, a lot of these young people make assumptions about how they understand DNA, but they make tons of errors because DNA and understanding of migration and admixture is a complex topic and it's hard to narrow down, right? So, that's why you see the Chadians with aura, right? You see other groups with different haplogroups. And the assumption is because it's primarily in Europe today, it's a white man gene, Japhet gene. But that's actually just like what Minister Yacoba was saying. There was so many blacks in Europe. They rewrote history, and there were really a lot of blacks in Europe. And you're going to see Minister Yacoba is going to show that. But it's DNA is more complex than you think, and black people were really in places that you thought they were not.
And people, and I'm gonna say it again, and I'm not here to teach DNA and haplogroups, but they are misused. Okay, they don't understand it. All they can do is read white papers and not apply logic and reasoning abilities. Okay, we keep saying that there's a problem there, right? And so you need to learn it for yourself and be able to reason the information.
Yeah, and as we mentioned before, right? I mean, the concepts that are used with the study of DNA is very similar to what we do as programmers. So the language is not hard for us to understand. The concepts are not hard for us to understand because this is what we do, say from a programming perspective, right? So some people try to follow the migration and the haplogroups and try to apply it to certain particular people, right? But then when you deal with centimorgans and alleles and things like that, it gets deeper, all right? And it's just not as
Black and white.
black and white. There you go. It's not as black and white as people are trying to spell this out to you. It's complex, right? And this is why, like we say, it's not a DNA topic, but history and who's who does end up crossing into the area of DNA, trying to identify those people, right? But when you start getting into the mutations and the matches and the chromosomes, it gets very detailed and complex, and who married who. Like, say for example, yeah, I'm going a little deep here, but say for example, the first captivity, right? The Babylonian captivity. When Israel came out of Babylon, you think they didn't have some of that Babylonian DNA when they came out of their very first captivity? So when they went back to Jerusalem, some of them did already lost whatever haplogroup you think they had, right? Say it's E1B1A. Some of them already lost it after the first captivity. There are many variations that affect those, who has what haplogroup at a specific time in history. But just that alone, coming out of Babylon, you would have had Israelites with a different haplogroup, right?
And people, oh yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, these simple statements that this is Japhet, right, or this is Esau, or you can't do that, right? There are many
If
things
you
that
don't like
affect.
the fact we're talking about DNA, you could shut it off. You know that, right?
Who said that? Who said?
Second Exodus.
You could do the turn off button, right? But the bottom line is you are wrong in a lot of your teachings. Okay, I'm not coming at you, but you are. But go ahead, Yacoba.
Look, the reason why we brought up the DNA thing is because people make a lot of assumptions. Then when they see a issue or an aberrant haplogroup, they ignore that, or they say, "Well, he must have been Israel." They make stupid statements like that with no proof, right? And people want to listen to it. So the reason we bring this up is because when we look at all of that, it comes full circle. That's the point. And
Right.
if you look at what we've been teaching, all of that is lining up, right? And so, like for instance, a lot of the people that has been in Portugal and Spain, they were in there during the time of the Babylonian captivity, right? The first one, not the second one that we're in. So they were there a long time. And then you got these Moors that come in, right, from Africa and conquer everything. Okay. And so you got to understand too, there is some mixing, even though Israel stayed by themselves most of the time, right? But there's always a few. So our point is that when you look at these things, you're dealing a lot of times following migration patterns, and those migration patterns seem to line up with the historical narrative. See, if you go by what these people say, they say, well, Jay is Japhet and this and that, right? It don't line up in every case, and they have no answer for it. Okay.
Well, I've seen people say that Esau is a different haplogroup than Jacob, which is a different haplogroup from Abraham, which is a different haplogroup from Isaac, which is a different haplogroup from Ishmael. Sorry, every last one of them had the same haplogroup because they have what Abraham had, right? So not to get in the haplogroups, but it's frustrating when and so basically the history that we're telling you about, where there were a lot of black people in Europe, right? That affects the game, right? That affects that whole migration pattern, whose DNA is what. And out of Africa theory really gets reaffirmed, right? Because that haplogroup came out of Africa and went to the other nations of the world.
And so here's the thing. Why did I talk about DNA? Because some of y'all don't like it and I don't give a crap. You know what I'm saying? But the reason why is when you look at what we're learning from history, that Israel was in Germany, Israel was in Russia, Israel was in Spain, Israel was in Portugal, Israel was in England. When you look at Israel being in Europe, when you're looking at DNA and that DNA ties back to Europe, you might be tying back to Israel. That's why. Okay, if Israel been there all that time for over 800 years, you're gonna tell me that some of those haplogroups not tying back to some of the people. It says Europe, you thinking white man. Every time it says Europe, you thinking white man, but it could be tying back to Israelites, or it could be tying back to Ishmael. Who knows? Point being is it ain't necessarily white folks. You got to be more sophisticated, and that's why I went there with it, because you have to start asking these questions. Well, if all of these black folks were ruling Europe, then their DNA is all over the place. And when they take those samples from Europe, some of them might be Israelites. But it's not E1B1A. Okay, that's the simple-minded approach. That's the lack of understanding. But let me continue, okay? Let me continue. Because be honest with you, I'm going to be honest right now. Can I be honest, Mr. Tayu?
Bring it.
I'm gonna be honest right now. I don't like y'all coming on me telling me what I can and cannot talk about. Well, y'all handle DNA. We gonna handle DNA. Y'all handle the history. I don't give a crap about that. You don't tell me.
Y'all gotta know, family. We were told
that
y'all stay in y'all lane. We be in our lane. We gonna teach DNA, and y'all could teach history. Nah, we don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like that. I talk about what I want to talk about when I want to talk about it. Now, you want to talk about it? Go on, do your little teaching. But I'm gonna talk about it when I want to talk about it. And I don't give a crap what you think. Oh, we're going to go to war now. Fine. All right, so let's continue. Because anyway, and let me say this one more time. Y'all think I don't be watching and y'all doing these little shots on the side and little snips at us at Tail Ministries and we don't see nothing? You think we don't notice it? We notice it. All right, so let's continue. All right, Nasrid dynasty. The Nasrid dynasty was an Arab dynasty, the last Muslim dynasty in the Iberian Peninsula. I read all of this, right? What I want to read is down here. The dynasty founded by Muhammad Granada held a territory that included Granada, Jaén, Almeria, and Malaga, Valencia, Jativa, and Jaén were conquered by Christians during the campaigns of the Reconquista, and the Nasrids were made into tribute-paying vassals. Okay, so after the Nasrids lost, they had to pay money to the state. Is that not what we saw in the documentation about the Jews? They had to pay money so they could stay in Spain. So here it says the Nasrids were made to pay tribute, paying vassals in 1243. Granada continued as a center of Islamic culture. The Nasrids formed alliances with the Maronids of Morocco. The Maronids of Morocco. Who were the Maronids of Morocco? And I'm going to say this right now. You need to go back and look at some of the earlier videos so you know all about the idea of Berbers. All right. So the Maronid Sultanate was a Berber empire from the mid-13th to the 15th century, which controlled present-day Morocco and intermittently other parts of North Africa, Algeria, and Tunisia, and of southern Spain around Gibraltar. It was named after the Banu Maron, a Zenata Berber tribe. Do you know about Zenata? We talked about the Zenata in other shows. African Berbers tribe, black folks, Moors, Some are Israelites, which is why some of the Berbers could be slaves, which is why some of the Negroes are the only ones who can be slaves, according to what is the Oklahoma law. So the Granada Berbers are the African Berber tribe, the dark-looking black folks, the Tuaregs, Israelites. The Tuaregs are the Israelites that control the the Sahara, the sub-Sahara. I mean that Sahara Desert. That's what I'm talking about. The Sahara Desert. So the Sultanate was ruled by the Maronite dynasty founded by Abd el-Haq. All right, so understand that all of this stuff comes around it. You're gonna have to go back and look at some of those older videos if you knew, if you haven't been following along. That's why I've been saying, okay, truth will line up with truth. When you have to twist and manipulate and lie and try to make everybody the same, and Chinese are Israelites now, Afghanis are Israelites now, all these different ethnic groups are Israelites now, it makes no sense. And I get ticked off when y'all try to give away my heritage. Our people been persecuted, killed, tortured, our heritage stolen, right? Lied to even to this day, manipulated even by our own people. I'm not going to put up with it, right? That's why I told you this is a truth ministry. If you don't like it, this ain't the place for you. Let's continue. All right, so we're going to look at another video, and once again, it's from KMZ History. And we're going to go forth and look more at this presence of black people all over Europe, which was, like I said, Israelites, some of them, and some of them, some Israelites and some Ishmaelites.
So, brothers, during the early middle portion of this video, I made a statement stating that I can just basically turn this video into a video about the black Germans. And I said that a lot of the black Germans were going over to the Americas, and that Benjamin Franklin had a problem with that. So I'm going to show you guys why I stated that. So the German Palatines. In 1709, England found itself playing a host to thousands of Germans who were fleeing famine, war, and religious persecution in their native lands. Many of the first arrivals came from Palatine. Now, for those who don't know, Palatine is a region in Germany. And the refugees became collectively known as the Poor Palatines. They have been displaced by French invasions and famine during the 9 Years and Spanish Succession Wars. Arriving in London, many were resettled in Ireland and British America. Towards the end of the 17th century and into the 18th, the wealthy region was repeatedly invaded by French troops during the religious wars. They imposed continuous military requisitions, causing widespread devastation and famine. The winter of 1708 was notably cold, resulting in further hardships. The term Poor Palatines referred to some 13,000 Germans who emigrated to England between May and November 1709, seeking refuge. Their arrival in England and the inability of the British government to integrate them led to a highly politicized debate over the merits of immigration. The English tried to settle them in England, Ireland, and British America to strengthen their position abroad. The Palatine settlements did not prove to be viable in the long term, except for those settled in countries Limerick and Wexford in Ireland and in the colony of New York in America. The English transported nearly 3,000 German Palatines in 10 ships to New York in 1710. Many of them were first assigned to work camps along the Hudson River to work off the cost of their passage. Close to 850 families settled in the Hudson River Valley, primarily in what are now Germantown and Socrates, New York. They produced stores for the Navy in work camps on each side of the Hudson. In 1723, 100 heads of families from the work camps were the first Europeans to acquire land west of Little Falls. In present-day Herkimer County, on both the north and south sides along the Mohawk River. This settlement was halfway through. This settlement was halfway through the valley on the frontier far beyond the Schenectady and Albany. Later, additional Palatine Germans settled along the Mohawk River for several miles, founding towns such as Palatine and Palatine Bridge, and in the Schoharie Valley. So basically, what all that is saying is a lot of the Palatine Germans were coming over from Europe and settling in America in New York. So the question is, were those Palatine Germans so-called black? Now, of course, we all know the answer to this, but let's hear what your boy Ben Frank has to say. So, and since detachments of English from Britain sent to America will have their places home so soon supplied and increased so largely here, why should the Palatine Boers be suffered to swarm into our settlements? So what is a swarm? A swarm is a large group of people or animals, what have you, that takes over an area. And by herding together establish their language and manners to the exclusion of ours. Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them? Now, first and foremost, the original Anglo-Saxons were so-called black. They just take on the identity and take on the history like they always do. But you read this here, and it sounds like Benjamin Franklin is hating on the Germans because he doesn't want to learn the language and customs. But let's read on. So, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion. Now, shouldn't Benjamin Franklin and the Germans have the same complexion? Why is he complaining about they can't acquire his complexion? So let's read on, which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionately very small. All Africa is black or tawny, Asia chiefly tawny, America exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we would call a swarthy complexion. Swarthy meaning dark-skinned, dark-fleshed. For any of you so-called black people that are new, just go look this word up. As are the Germans also. The Saxons only accepted, who, with the English, make the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. And once again, the original Saxons were so-called black. I wish their numbers were increased. He's basically saying, I wish there were more people around that looks like me. There's too much black, swarthy, and tawny people around me, aka different shades of brown. So, and while we are, as I may call it, scouring our planet by clearing America of woods, and so making this side of our globe reflect a brighter light to the eyes of inhabitants in Mars and Venus, why should we, in the sight of superior beings, darken its people? Why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America, where we have so fair an opportunity, by excluding all blacks and tawnies of increasing the lovely white and red? But perhaps I am partial to the complexion of my country, for such kind of partiality is natural to mankind.
So today we would say that Ben Franklin was a racist. Now, for those who want to go and validate that particular article he was reading, this is from Columbia University. I'm putting a link in the chat. All right. So I'm going to share that one again, not from the video, but from the link. Now, notice observations concerning the increase of mankind, peopling of countries, etc. Benjamin Franklin. So the whole point was being that the idea of the Palatines, that the Palatines were black. So as we got over here and we got to this particular document, right, we saw that the Palatine Boers, right, were not the same color as Ben Franklin. And so Ben Franklin made the association that Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, Swedes were what you call swarthy. They had color. And that's been our point from the beginning. Everybody was black or was of a color. Everyone was black or of color except for a few. Now, we do know, well, let me read this before I make a comment. So I'm going to read this again, what he said in the video. All right. In fine, a nation well regulated is like a polypus. Take away limb, its place is soon supplied, cut it in two, and each deficient part shall speedily grow out of the part remaining. Thus, if you have room and subsistence enough, as you may by dividing make 10 polyps out of one, you may of one make 10 nations equally populous and powerful, rather increase a nation tenfold in numbers and strength. And since detachments of English from Britain sent to America will have their places at home so soon supplied and increased, so largely here, why should the Palatine Boers be suffered to swarm into our settlements and by herding together establish their language and manners to the exclusion of of ours? Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens or strangers who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of our anglifying them? Angli or Angli is where we get the word English from, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion. So it showed that the Germans were not white because they were not the same color as Ben Franklin. Which leads me to add one remark that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionably very small. See, there were not a lot of white folks in the world. But you can see throughout history, Britain and all of those colonizers went through trying to whiten up everybody. Went around sleeping with the people in Australia, trying to turn them white. Same thing with the Chinese. Same thing with the Indians. They went everywhere trying to whiten up everybody. But here, Ben Franklin says that the world, the white people of the world is very small. He says all Africa is black or tawny, Asia chiefly tawny, America exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion. All of you all who are new here, go look up swarthy. The ones who've been following us for years, they know what swarthy is. As are the Germans, also the Saxons only accepted. So the Saxons are the only ones they say aren't swarthy, who with the English make the principal body of white people. So the most, according to Ben Franklin, the majority of white people come from the Saxons on the face of the earth. So you want to know where white folks come from? The Saxons. Now, where the Saxons come from is the question. Okay, I could wish their numbers were increased. And while we are, as I may call it, scouring our planet by clearing America of woods, and so making this side of our globe reflect a brighter light to the eyes of inhabitants, in other words, whiten up people, in Mars or Venus, why should we, in the sight of superior beings, see, there go that racism, white supremacy, darken his people? Why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America? Well, why y'all brought us over here? Where we have so fair an opportunity by excluding all blacks, tawnies, of increasing the lovely white and red. But perhaps I'm partial to the complexion of my country, for such kind of partiality is natural to man. No, you are racist. Okay. Any comments on this, Mr. Tate?
No, you keep it going.
All right. So understand that during the time of the rulership of the Moors, and the Moors ruled Europe for 800 years, and we have other documentation that shows that Jews, black Jews, lived in Germany. We have documentation that black Jews lived in England. We have documentation that they were kicked out of those places later on, because when they first went in, those who had money was able to bribe them and stay there for a while. Then later on, they were kicked out. And everywhere we went, they chased us down and kicked us out. Point being is that Israel was the one ruling. Israel ruled Europe. Black folks ruled Europe. And I'm going to end it with this. And this is one of the images you saw in the video. And this is the bowl Zing. And like I mentioned before, and look, this isn't proof that they Israel, but Israel wore headbands, or Jews wore headbands, and they wore golden earrings. We saw in some of the other images in the video that some of the black folks had golden earrings. I mean, it all ties back to the Bible. It all ties back to what we've been teaching you in the past. It all ties back to, what the Bible says. I mean, when you look closely at the scriptures, you can't deny none of this, right? And those who will try are gaslighting you. Okay, original meaning: the arms were granted on February 26, 1845. The arm shows a Moor's head, derived from the legendary arms of the Testard family. The village was first mentioned in the 9th century as a possession of the Testard family. The family, who named itself after the village, ruled the village until the 14th century. Their arms are not known, however. A banner is described for the family, which bore a Moor's head. From this banner, the arms were derived. Usually the arms represent the people who live there. The arms represent the family and what they look like and who they are. That's usually what it's for. So, as I was saying, the scriptures told you that Israel will go into captivity. The scriptures told you that I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon earth. So, as you saw with the Boshing arms, they've lost that power. So, as Minister tell you, what's the name of what is it in Amsterdam where they do the little Christmas celebration with the black face folks?
Black Pete?
Black Pete.
Yeah.
A lot of people say Black Pete is racist. You can look at it now as maybe they were honoring not their ancestors, so to speak, but the ancient rulers of that land.
Well, they made Black Pete a servant, and he was serving Demon Santa.
Okay, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But, we understand that we had a connection there. So what I want to do right now is let Minister Tayu continue.
Yeah, I just want to share a little bit. Let me share my screen. Okay. There we go. Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna read this to you guys. I've been looking into Jamaica and its history, and let me just read this. The ethnogenesis of the Black Jamaican people stemmed from the Atlantic slave trade of the 16th century, when enslaved Africans were transported as slaves to Jamaica and other parts of the Americas. The first Africans to arrive in Jamaica came in 1513 from where? Iberian Peninsula. Have we seen that before, family? Al Andalus, right? Al Andalus. You've seen that. Okay, so from the Iberian Peninsula. So the Spanish colonization of the Americas happened around 1513, and their slaves came from Spain and Portugal, right? So this keeps popping up no matter how often we try to ignore it, right? So this plays a significant role, right? Because we're the people that were being targeted. So when the British Empire captured Jamaica in 1655, many of them fought with the Spanish, who gave them their freedom and then fled to the mountains, resisting the British for many years to maintain their freedom, becoming known as the Maroons. So the Maroons are basically slaves who resisted the Brits, and the Brits signed a peace treaty with them and said, hey, we'll leave you alone if you don't touch the rest of our slaves, right? So, they signed that agreement and had their own community. The British brought with them mostly Akan and Igbo slaves, some of whom ran away and joined the Maroons and even took over as leaders. Jamaican Maroons are also from South America, Central America, Latin America, of Spanish descent, who are non-African. So you have some of these Indian groups that joined the Maroons, but as you know, the Maroons began as Negro slaves who rebelled against the British Empire. But notice the Khan, right, the Ashanti, the Khan people, and the Igbo were slaves under the British. So William, what is his name? William, I can't think of his name right now. William something, anyway. In his book, he wrote about the Khans. He said that they were Jews, that he said they had the Jewish traditions, right? And we already know what Pastor Kelly and Pastor Brown brought out, the Igbo have been identified as Jews. So we have two groups known as Jews who were brought to Jamaica, right, as slaves. We have Jews who came before the 1600s, who came from the Iberian Peninsula, Al-Andalus, right, which were the Sephardic Black Jews who were brought to Jamaica at that time, right? So keep all that in mind. And I'm going to share, let's see here. There we go. So this is my little book collection. And I just wanted to share some information with you guys on this. This book here is The History, Civil, and Commercial of the British Colonies by Brian Edwards. So the interesting thing here, this is in the West Indies, and the West Indies, let me reaffirm to you guys what that is. This is the West Indies, right? Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Belize, Bahamas, right? This area. All right. Okay. So in the West Indies, there's this comment in this book that they basically were making the slaves dance. Clap your hands and dance. So to clap their hands and to shout their song of Yah, Yah. Now to the person who documented this, they said it means friend. Okay, but how do they know what these so-called slaves were singing? But look, the song was Yah, Yah, right? So we have a group of people in Jamaica itself singing Yah, Yah, in the West Indies singing Yah, Yah, right? So I think they knew something of their heritage, right? Here we go. The New Researches on Ancient History by Constantine Francois Volney, right? And it says, Eusebius in his Chronicon says in a year corresponding to 1575 before Jesus Christ, that Ethiopians coming from the river Indus and encamped and settled near Egypt. The Jews, by their own avowal, being of Chaldean race, a branch of Black Arabs. So in this case, he referred to them as Black Arabs, right? Let's see. Yeah, I have a lot of books up in here I'm going through. This is an interesting book. I'm gonna reference that so you guys can read it. But this is about the Igbos. This was about how they practice polygamy, right? While they practice polygamy is recognized as an integral part of the social economy of the Igbos, yet in actual fact, one wife only is specifically acknowledged. In native law, the first wife alone is granted the position and rights of the legal wife. So, like Sarah, right? So she alone bears the title of a Nasi. She's the head wife. She's the only one that's really identified as the wife. All the other wives are, I think, referred to similar to a word as concubine. Right. But I wanted to stay back on what we see here. The Jews appear to have been originally a dark-skinned and woolly-haired race, but it is well known that the Jews of Europe very frequently present the characteristics of the lightest colored race. So we had the European Jews, right? Light-skinned, the European white Jews, but the original Jews were dark-skinned and woolly-haired. Right. This here book is The Jew Being a Defense of Judaism Against All Adversaries by S.H. Jackson. Thus, we may gather from the representation of Sargon himself that the black Jews considered the Portuguese the persecutors and the destroyers of their race, and no doubt an account of their former troubles at Cranganore. So we see here that the black Jews were in Portugal, who were oppressed by the Portuguese, considered the Portuguese their persecutor, right? The creation and the early development of society. Let's see here. Yeah. Then take a single illustration that can be traced somewhat easily. There is no people of more marked physiognomical expression than the Jews, dark complexion, round face, and black hair. Moreover, as they rarely intermarry with other people, these features are remarkably well preserved. See, so once again, as we mentioned, the Jews didn't intermarry with other groups, right? So this idea that they are multicolored, that they are the melting pot of America, that they can be Chinese, Japanese, white, that's not the case, all right? And even if they did mix, that wouldn't mean that the majority of the nation was anything other than a black people. Yeah, go ahead, Minister Yacoba.
So read that.
Maybe that's why we mix so freely. If we are all Jews, black and white, then there is no restriction on mixing. We're not all Jews. The Jews didn't mix. I just showed you that. The Jews were black with woolly hair. I just showed you that. Okay.
So here's the other thing. So other people who said, we stole somebody else's identity. We not Jews. Stop stealing other people's heritage and identity. Now today, because they've been proven that the Igbos are Jews. Well, you're okay. Well, y'all might be Jews, but y'all ain't the only Jews. White folks are Jews, Chinese are Jews, everybody Jews. But you know what I'm saying? What kind of foolishness is that? Right? So for the longest, for 4 years, we not Jews. We stealing somebody's identity. And now all of a sudden, okay, y'all might be Jews, but they ain't just black. What kind of foolishness is that? So in the past, you said we weren't. I was supposed to listen to you then. You got proven wrong. Now you say that everybody who's a Jew now is different colors. I'm supposed to listen to you again when you were wrong many times in the past? That don't make no sense.
Well, come on. We all know that family lineage just doesn't work that way. I mean, people have an agenda when they're trying to make you think that the Jews is something other than a family bloodline. And Israel, okay, let me recorrect my statement. The Israelites are a family bloodline. A Jew could be people of a religion. All right. So if you are of a Jewish religion, that's fine. But the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that's a bloodline descendant. And they have to be of a particular race. So even if you think that the Jews are white, all Jews are white. Don't give me that Chinese and Indian and all of that. Don't work that way.
Look
okay,
at this,
but
Mr. Tate. Israelites
are mixed with the nations. Foolishness. I just showed you 2 seconds ago that Israel didn't mix. That the Jews didn't mix. They didn't step outside of their nation. And just like in that book I showed you about the Igbo did not mix at all with other groups either. Okay, this is a false narrative that the Jews mix with other groups. But let's say that's the case. The Jews, being a black people, have a dominant gene. This is why you can, like in America, we see it every day, right? When you have the mixed children become Negro most of the time They may look a little lighter than their parents. Some of them might have straight hair, but most of them have curly hair that leans toward woolly hair, right? And then a lot of them look black, right? So you can go and look at, I mean, a lot of y'all have mixed children. I guarantee you most of them are looking black. Not all of them, but most of them. So if, like in America, we've been here 400 years, we've been mixing, but the children become black because the Negro has the dominant gene. The children get woolly hair, the children get dark skin, and then if they remarry into, say, the culture, their children become darker again. Okay.
So he
I
said,
mean,
I'm
this
not
is,
talking about sex mix. I'm like, okay, then what are we talking about here then?
I don't know what that means then. All right, let me continue. A
Go
treatise
ahead.
on physical geography by A. Barrington. Now, this separate race, all descended from brown ancestors for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, must have been as dark as Mar Yohanan, if not darker. Exhibit every shade of color from the black Jew to the of Malabar, of whom we have such an interesting account of Dr. Claudius Buchanan, to the rose and lily complexion of the Jewess on the banks of the Elbe. We need go no further than the Jews of southern Spain and compare them with those of what's that? Holland and northern Germany to perceive a very striking difference. The Spanish Jew is always dark complexion, right? So we already seen stuff where the Portuguese are always black. The Spanish Jews are also dark complexion. So a lot of people saying we're still in the heritage, but they got to answer these statements that are in these books. I'm gonna tell you, any book pre 1850, you're not going to see too many mentions of white Jews at all. All right. Memoirs of Secret Service of John Mackey, Esquire. Okay. He had also the exterior air of, what is this? Whatever that word is, an application enough to make him very capable in his habit and manner, very formal, tall, thin, very black man, like a Spaniard or a Jew. So in this guy writing, John Mackey, he's saying that the Spaniard is a black man or a Jew. So my question is, who are the Spaniards today in Spain? If we constantly keep coming across references that say the Spaniards were black and the Portuguese were black and the black Jews and the Jews of that area were black, then who are those Spaniards that are in Spain today? Right? Just a question. All right. So let's see here. Here's an interesting one I found. Law and Lawyers are sketches and illustrations of legal history and biography by Archer Poulsen. Sir John Sylvester was the son of Jewish or Portuguese physician and obtained practice by a constant attendance at all the petty courts of the town. He was exceedingly dark in his complexion and thus obtained the cognomen of Black Jack. Right? He's a Portuguese Jew, very dark, and called Black Jack. Okay. Let's keep going here. I still have work to do. I've been refining my work here.
So, minutes to tell you, I don't want to go over an hour and 30 minutes because then I can't upload on BitChute.
Okay, I'm almost done. All right. Let's see. How much time I have? I got one more to show.
All right.
All right. Sources of history in the Pentateuch, Samuel, Colcord, Bartlett. Thus, the black color is found not only in individuals as the black Jews of Portugal, but in tribes as the Berbers on the Red Sea, page 118. And then this last one. Now, this one, guys, this is in Dutch. I had to translate it. Minister Jacoba showed this to me. We have to translate it. So, Dante, you might like this one, right? Let's see. Let's go. Let me start here. Whose waters, of course, increase enormously by considerable influx in the small Negro states along the many black Jews are also found, descendants of those Israelites who were expelled in 1492 by King John XII in Portugal. Furthermore, there are Dandos, okay, or white Negroes. So the word Dando means white Negro. Usually these people are taxable to the Portuguese. So I just wanted to show that as well. So, when they say that, when they talk about the white people in Africa or in all of this, They're dondos, which are albinos. Okay. That's all I wanted to share, Mr. Jacoba.
All right, all right. Yashia, I got what you're saying. So they was scattered into every nation. All right. I guess that word mix made it confusing. All right, what you were saying. It was a bit confusing, but I got you now. All right. So look, here's the thing. Israel is a Negro people. And anybody say anything else is wrong. Right. Not that doesn't mean that you got a few of them that might look white, because I know a few who look white, who Negro, right? And they family Negro, right? I'm not saying there aren't some, but don't try to make it like Israel look like every other culture and mixed in with everybody and watered out. That ain't never happened, because then those prophecies ain't gonna never come to pass, because then everybody is coming back from captivity and everybody going back to Africa. All right. So I want to thank you all for listening. And also, I want to thank all the super chat givers. Thank you in my life totally for the gift, and everyone who gave through super chat. I also want to thank the Cash App supporters and patrons. And one thing I want to emphasize before we end, look, I'm not sharing my heritage with nobody. Okay. My ancestors were raped, killed, murdered, tortured, persecuted, and even to this day discriminated and shot in the streets. You think I'm gonna give
And
away my
terrorized and
heritage
still
and my
terrorized.
identity to other people who was doing that to us? I don't think so. I'm not playing the game with some of you all who want to give away our heritage. I'm not the one, and I'm gonna speak out about it. Minister, tell you.
Yeah, I just wanted to back that up. I mean, our ancestors were terrorized beyond imagination. I'm not forgetting that either, because there's a debt to be paid and it's old. I don't care what you think. And I'm going to tell you, I keep saying this. You Negro Israelites that ignore the transatlantic slave trade, you are straight up traitors. Traitors. You not my family. You are traitors. You ignore the transatlantic slave trade. You could not terrorize a nation of people any worse than what was done to our ancestors. You could not do a worse job, because they did everything that you can imagine to our people. Can you imagine the terror that our people went through? That's all I wanted to say.
All right. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending. Love you with the love of the Messiah. If you like what we talk about over here, please subscribe. And also, please share this particular video and many others. Love y'all with the love of the Messiah and praying for the second Exodus. Peace out, fam.